In this video, I'll be discussing phylogeny and how a phylogenetic tree is used to show relationships between species. I'll be using a non-biological example to demonstrate this concept in a more accessible way. To replace the species, I will be using different shapes and discussing what distinguishes them on the tree. The shapes I will be using include a circle, triangle, square, rhombus, rectangle, parallelogram, hexagon, and octagon. First, let's talk about phylogeny. Phylogeny is the study of evolution of a certain group of organisms. A phylogenetic tree is the map that is used to show this evolutionary history and the relationships between evolved organisms. These can be based on physical traits or genetic differences. Here is the phylogenetic tree that I put together for the shapes. There are multiple configurations possible for each phylogenetic tree, but this is the one we will be looking at. In order to understand why this is set up this way, let's talk about some crucial definitions. First, we have anagenesis. Anagenesis is the evolution of one species without branching off. This means that one species will evolve into one species. Cladogenesis is where the evolution of one species branches and results in at least two different species. An OTU is an operational taxonomic unit, or what is being distinguished between to form the tree. The OTU can be as broad as a species or as specific as different alleles within a species. It just depends on what you were looking for and comparing. In our case, the OTUs are the shapes acting as different species. There are two types of phylogenetic trees, rooted and unrooted. In an unrooted tree, the distance between OTUs is known, but not the order of evolution. In a rooted tree, both the distance between OTUs and the order of divergence are specified by comparing the groups to something called an outgroup. An outgroup is an OTU that diverged the earliest out of the other OTUs and established a root where all the other OTUs have a common ancestor that is not shared with the outgroup. A common ancestor is an individual from which all of the species listed evolved, and the most recent common ancestor is exactly what it sounds like, the most recent individual from which a group evolved. There may be multiple common ancestors between species, but the most recent one is the one they are most closely related to. Now that you know the basics, let's discuss why this tree is set up this way. Our outgroup is the circle because it is a shape, but we are looking at the relationship between the other 8 shapes based off of their sides and angles. Since the circle has no sides or angles, it is just a reference point for our shapes or OTUs with sides. This point is the most recent common ancestor for our in-group at this node here, where it branches off the first time. This branch splits into the triangle and a common ancestor for the rest of the OTUs. This common ancestor then branches again, and so on and so forth until we get to each of the OTUs. The branches that are shortest show the individuals that are most closely related. In our case, these are the clades or groups that include the square and the rhombus, and the rectangle and parallelogram. If we classify the ancestors based on the traits they have, you can see them here. The ancestor for the 4-sided shape splits into ancestors based off of side lengths. The square and rhombus are in groups because they have 4 sides that are the same lengths, but the internal angles are different from each other, separating them into their own species. The rectangle and parallelogram are in a clade because they have opposite sides which are equal to each other, but not all the sides are the same. Similar to the square and rhombus, their internal angles are different from each other, so they form separate species. The hexagon and octagon are in a group because they both have 6 or more sides, but the hexagon has 6 and the octagon has 8, making them different species.